We didn't know anything about black folks because we never really saw them.
You just did not go to Forsyth County.
In my mind, the black people lived somewhere else. I thought it was that way everywhere.
People of color crossed the county line at risk of their lives. And I remember being in the back of a pickup truck in my baseball uniform and walking along behind us. The next group in the parade were Klansmen in white hoods and robes, waving to the crowd. Forsyth County wasn't a place where people had to hide that sort of thing.
In the Jim Crow era, Forsyth County, Georgia was a sundown county, a whites-only zone where it was either illegal or unsafe for black people to be there after dark. There were towns like this all across America at the time, but what made Forsyth unique is that it stayed that way for 70 years, well into the 1980s.
One of the frequent questions I got was, why in the world did your family move there? I think one obvious answer is white people in America don't have to know a whole lot about a place that they move to. The risk, the peril, and threat of physical violence in this community was directed at people of color. So it wasn't really directed at us.
Patrick Phillips moved to Forsyth County when he was a little kid, and he wrote a book about his experience growing up there.
When I started going to second grade there and on up through elementary, it became kind of clear to me that there was something really wrong about the place. And almost all of the kids I went to school with used incredibly racist language, referring to people of color with the N-word, wearing Klan robes. All of this stuff wasn't something that people did on the sly. And it was, in fact, a whites-only zone.
In the mid-1800s, during Reconstruction, Forsyth was a mixed county where black people made considerable strides. By 1910, 10% of the population was black, with black families owning 200 to 300 acres of property individually. 2 years later, in the midst of the Jim Crow era, an anti-black campaign led 2 neighboring counties to expel its black populations, inspiring Forsyth to do the same. The catalyst was the alleged rape and murder of a white woman by 3 black men in the town of Cumming.
There's incredibly strong evidence to suggest that Rob Edwards was simply picked up as the nearest black man in the area when her body was found. And that the trial of these 2 teenagers, Ernest Knox and Oscar Daniel, they were 16 and 18 cousins. Very strong evidence that whatever else, they didn't get anything we would call close to justice.
These people in this mob beat down the door, and they had weapons, they had crowbars, they had all sorts of things. They went to where the jail cell was. They shot Rob Edwards repeatedly, beat him with a crowbar, took his body and dragged it behind a wagon. And according to the most common stories, they rode around and around the courthouse square, and everybody had target practice with this corpse. And then they strung up his body across the street and about a half a block away.
But this is a lynching participated in by a lot of the community. Hundreds of people took part in it. When they were hung, the entire county turned their hangings into a kind of festival day. They all brought blankets and picnic baskets and sat on a hill overlooking the gallows and cheered and celebrated this hanging. It feels like a legal lynching in the case of Knox and Daniel, and certainly in the case of Rob Edwards, a very horrific lynching on the public square.
After the lynching and hangings, white mobs terrorized Forsyth's black residents.
A black man would open his front door in the morning, and he would see a bundle of sticks tied with string just laying on his front doorstep, and that was all it took, because that was saying, next time it'll be dynamite. There were 48 families who were documented landowners in Forsyth County at that time, black documented landowners at that time.
In a matter of days, 1,100 black people were displaced, eclipsing any wealth and progress they'd made during Reconstruction.
They had to leave Forsyth County, regardless of what you had, what you owned, you had to leave.
Elon Osby is a descendant of one of those families. Her grandfather owned somewhere between 60 and 80 acres of land in Forsyth.
I have a home here that's on an acre of land almost, and you're really proud of that, and to think that my grandfather had 80-something acres, it's staggering. It hurts, it's sad, and I can't imagine what my grandfather must have been feeling. Land was more important than money in the bank, and I'm sure that he was very proud of himself. as a Negro man, to have property like that.
Forsyth remained an all-white county for over 70 years, and that pattern of violence against Black people continued.
Every decade I looked into, there was another episode of violence. There was another outbreak of really shocking bigotry. Miguel Marcelli was an Atlanta firefighter who came to Lake Lanier in 1980, and he and his girlfriend were both of them Black, were at a company picnic on Lake Lanier, and Miguel Marcelli got shot in the head, by a descendant of some of the original mob night riders in 1912.
And in 1987, the world watched as peaceful protesters of all races got stoned and attacked by a white mob in a clash with the Klan while marching for integration in Forsyth.
To see that hatred firsthand and to know that this is still happening, that these people still feel this way, it was just very scary to me. And still, it just pounded it home even more. You don't go there. There's nothing in Forsyth County for you.
Today, Forsyth County is one of the wealthiest counties in the country. It's over 75% white and 4% Black.
That land is some of the most valuable real estate in metropolitan Atlanta. Being deprived of the use value of that land for 100 years and being deprived of its current value when many of these families either sold under duress or, in some cases probably sold at gunpoint, or simply it was unsafe for them to return to the county. And so they lost their land through really unjust means. This kind of land theft, this kind of, whether through legal or illegal means, is depriving of intergenerational wealth to Black families.
Does it bother you that Forsyth is now one of the wealthiest counties in Georgia and the country?
When I first heard that several years ago, it bothered me. There are some things that I purposely don't think about too much, and this is not a happy story. It just does not end up happily. The speedy expulsion of Forsyth's Black population also created land issues for the deceased.
We go around and we try to find the Black cemeteries.
There are a lot of people buried in Forsyth County that are only marked with fieldstones. People were buried and their family have never been able to come back and visit their graves and see if their grave was being tended or even if somebody built a house on top of it.
So there are graves in people's backyards, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in some cases, they are Black cemeteries that
Yes.
have been wiped out, basically.
Abandoned. Yeah. Yeah.
Their descendants would still be there, living on their property, if they had not been forced to leave.
How do you process that today?
It saddens me that, things that happened in 1912, it's not the exact same thing that's happening now, but very similar. It is so sad to reach a point in my life, in my lifespan. Now, never, you didn't even dream or think that there was going to be a Black president. Never would you think about that. And so then when it happens, you think, oh my goodness, we're getting there. We're getting to the mountaintop. No, we haven't gotten there. Things have not really changed.
Steve and Dave use eToro to trade cryptocurrencies. Steve does extensive research in order to find the next Bitcoin. Dave does research on how to become a level 60 wizard. Steve follows the feed for the latest crypto news.